right, welcome back into the channel, and just like every other NFL YouTuber in the month of April, it is now Mock Draft Monday on the channel. Yeah, I know it's not the most creative idea, but the juices are flowing. I've consumed enough draft content, and I am ready for the NFL draft, a place of hope for plenty of NFL teams. Can your team draft their next great player? I appreciate all the support you guys have been showing on the channel. My way too early AFC and NFC predictions are already both on the channel. If you love the NFL, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But let's hop in to today's mock draft. All right, so we're doing this one round mock draft with no trades on PFF. This is more so a predictive mock draft. So a lot of these moves, especially early on, are ones that I think are going to happen. Now, obviously, as we get into the later picks in the first round, some of it has to be what I would do just because of who is left at this point in time. But the clear-cut #1 pick for the Tennessee Titans is Cam Ward. The team desperately needs a quarterback. You cannot run it back with Will Levis. They didn't do what the Giants did and bring in a Russell Wilson or a Jameis Winston. They clearly have their sights set on Cam Ward. And I think if Cam Ward pans out to his full potential, because I do think this is a guy who, has played a ton of college football and can be one of those players who hits immediately once they hit the NFL, the Titans have to think to themselves, we can compete in the AFC South with the Jaguars and the Colts as bad as they are in Houston, lacking an offensive line. But in real talk, this is where the draft starts, right? At pick #2, this is where we see a lot of what is going to happen, what could happen, where are certain players going to end up. And with that being said, I have the Cleveland Browns selecting edge Abdul Carter out of Penn State. There's been some talk about Travis Hunter going there. I think that's a bit of a smokescreen to potentially try and scare the Giants or Patriots into trading up at pick 2 if they had their sights set on a Travis Hunter. Abdul Carter, man, pairing him alongside a Myles Garrett as your edge rusher combination, that is a scary sight for the AFC North, whether it's Lamar, Burrow, or whoever Pittsburgh is throwing out there. That is going to be absolutely menacing. Give me Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns. And this is a spot where a lot of people are picking Shedeur Sanders, but I just don't buy it. I think Travis Hunter is one of 2 clear-cut blue-chip prospects in this draft, and if you're not getting Cam Ward, who is the #1 quarterback in this class, but in a weaker class, I think he would have gone maybe 3rd or 4th in last year's class, certainly behind Caleb and Jaden. You have to take the blue-chip player, Travis Hunter. I expect expect any team really that drafts him, New York, New England, whoever, to run him more at wide receiver, but at the end of the game, man, you could throw him out there in some red zone looks. Travis Hunter goes to New York, and this brings New England on the clock at pick 4. Personally, I think this is a prime trade back spot for New England. We're not going to in this mock draft, but just being, like, hey, what's going to happen? They're probably going to trade back if the draft falls this way. If one of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter falls to them, for sure taking him. But since it is not to be in this mock draft, I have them staying put. And I have them taking offensive tackle Will Campbell. My thing with Will Campbell basically is New England needs help all across the offensive line. Campbell could play guard or tackle, I think, at the NFL level. You'd rather him play guard, but you could start him at tackle. You have you brought in Moses Brown. So there's pieces there for New England. I think that Will Campbell, though, the most versatile offensive lineman, goes to the Patriots in this situation. The obvious pick that everybody's mocking, Mason Graham to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's not the flashy pick, but at the end of the day, that is a team that needs defensive line help. Mason Graham, an interior defensive lineman. You have him on the line with Josh Hines-Allen, a Trayvon Walker. That defense gets built back up in Jacksonville, but I do think they should really take a look at Ashton Jeanty at 5. I'll just say that. They should take a look at him. And then I have the Raiders taking Ashton Jeanty at 6. This seems to be where things are headed at this point in time. Jeanty to the Raiders And it makes a ton of sense, right? You could draft a wide receiver later in the draft, or you could roll out there with kind of what you got, but Bowers, Genty, Jacoby Myers, you got to get weapons for Geno Smith, who you just extended. And this brings the New York Jets on the clock at pick 7. Give me Armand Membu. I think the Jets don't want to go too flashy at all in terms of the offseason, the draft. I think Aaron Glenn is looking to build the foundation to his house in New York, and starting that off with Armand Membu to pair alongside Olu Fashanu, you have your tackles of the future. Whereas if next year you drafted a quarterback, you're bringing them into a spot where they could be protected, and Justin Fields for this season will have protection. Now, the Carolina Panthers at pick 8. I want to preface again, this is a predictive mock draft, not necessarily what I would do, but I do think that there is a need at edge rusher. Mike Green is a guy that I would certainly look at if I was Carolina, for sure. Ezaraku, a guy that I would look at. When it comes to linebacker, Jahad Campbell, a guy that I would look at here, but I ultimately think that the Panthers are going to go with Jalon Walker. This is what I have heard everybody and their mother say that the Carolina Panthers are going to do. They like the speed of Jalon Walker, the massive edge rushing presence. He is a guy who can absolutely get after the quarterback and disrupt the quarterback. Do I think it's a little rich in value? Would I be looking to trade back if I was the Panthers, if this was the guy I wanted? Yes, but this is who I'm seeing that they're taking. So I'm going to say that they're going to take him. The New Orleans Saints. Shedeur Sanders has fallen in this draft, and I think he falls to New Orleans with Derek Carr in the building. They just can't roll with him. Bring in Shedeur. You have Alvin Kamara, who could be a rookie quarterback's best friend. You still have Olave, Rashid Shaheed. So there's weapons there for Shedeur. Derek Carr, not the future. Give Kellen Moore, an offensive-minded head coach, his quarterback of the future to build around. And then the Bears are on the clock, and people are going to call me crazy for this one. I put it in the thumbnail, at least in some of them, but Omarion Hampton to the Bears. Now, I understand that immediately the first thought that everybody is absolutely having is, what are you doing taking the RB2 at 10? If it's Genty, fine, but there's other pieces on the board. We need an edge rusher. Mike Green's on. I hear you. Predictive mock draft 1. Ben Johnson, we've seen him do this before. Bijan Robinson was the clear top 10 pick. Jahmyr Gibbs goes at 12 to the Lions. Everybody thinks it's a massive overstep when he's on a team with DeAndre Swift. This is what Ben Johnson's offense is about. Building the offensive line. Did that. Campbell and Membu not on the board anymore. So the elite blue chip, you could call him, offensive lineman off the board. Ben Johnson takes his back. Omarion Hampton goes in the top 10. I think it is a bold prediction that I'm making. I'm not seeing it made a lot of other places. I get it if your reaction is, Dylan, you're absolutely insane. Kinda am. But just keep an eye out for it. I'm gonna have the cojones, the balls, to throw it on the table and say it's happening. The 49ers at pick 11. They could use a lot of different pieces here, but I am going to take the versatile cornerback out of Texas, Jahdae Barron. I think ideally this is a guy that you want to be playing nickel for you, but he can play the outside. And San Francisco's got a lot of holes to figure out on that defense. They got, 11, 12, 13 draft picks in this draft. Jahdae Barron is an elite talent that you can move around the field. I think he fits in seamlessly in San Francisco. The Dallas Cowboys at pick 12. I mean, how do things fall this way for them? Tet McMillan. Now, I know some people are saying that they're going to take Matthew Golden. Not if Tet McMillan's on the board. Not in my opinion. I think Tet McMillan is far and away the best wide receiver outside of Travis Hunter. I think those are your top 2 tier. Travis Hunter, Tet McMillan, that's a teardrop. I'm not falling in love with Golden's combine performance. Now, we have the Miami Dolphins on the board. Malachi Starks is certainly a guy I could see them going here. Will Johnson, certainly a guy I could see them going here. Mike Green still on the board. You got to give it a little bit of a look if you are the Miami Dolphins. Teron Armstead just retired. Now, they did draft that guy, Paul, name slipping my brain right now, but they drafted Teron Armstead's replacement last year. You do give Kelvin Banks just a little bit of a look here. But if I'm Miami, I think I'm just way too focused on the defensive side of the football at this point in time. Malachi Starks feels like a real blue chip prospect to me. Will Johnson gives me a little bit of look, but if I'm the Dolphins, I'm taking Starks. I think he is the best defensive back still on the board at this point in time. I would have loved Jahdae Barron to fall because, again, his versatility at the corner position, and I think he could be an elite nickel in this league. Seriously, the guy gives me Trent McDuffie vibes, but Malachi Starks out of Georgia, not a bad grab if you are the Dolphins, especially with Javon Holland leaving this team this offseason. The Colts, again, everybody mocks it. It's going to happen. Tyler Warren to the Colts feels like an absolute lock at this point in time. I love his versatility at the position. I don't think he's the all-around vertical threat that Colston Loveland will one day be, but at the end of the day, Tyler Warren is the best tight end in this class when it comes to blocking. The guy could run the ball. Whether it's Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, you got to get him a weapon over the middle of the field. Tyler Warren is that guy. Atlanta is up on the clock. They could take Jahad Campbell. I'm praying. I am praying for Falcons fans here that Mike Green is the pick. Mike Green needs to be the pick. This is a little bit undersized, but again, he can defend the run fine. They need an edge rusher, and they need one desperately. Atlanta, for the Falcons fans out there, please draft an edge rusher. The Cardinals up on the clock here. I think the Cardinals are focused on the defensive side of the football here, and I have them taking Will Johnson to be, that corner. I still believe in the Will Johnson that we saw 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the guy was going to be a top 10 pick, some injury, the team not as good last year. He slips a little in the draft, but Will Johnson, I think, has all the potential to be a true outside cornerback, one in this league. Arizona needs help in that secondary. Will Johnson to the Cardinals. This is a spot for the Bengals that I've seen a lot of people, they've been mocking Gray Zabel. Yes, no doubt Cincinnati needs a guard. I think they need to focus on the defense. And Jihad Campbell, still on the board at this point, is a massive defensive leader. You could go Kenneth Grant. I wouldn't hate going Kenneth Grant. I'm going to go Jihad Campbell as the leader of that Bengals defense. They desperately need help at linebacker. This is a guy who could come in and be an absolute missile on the field at any point in time. And if the Seattle Seahawks don't run the pick of, where's Gray Zabel at? What are we doing here? If they don't run the pick of Gray Zabel into the board, into the draft room, and say, make the pick now, I don't know what Seattle's doing. I just don't know what Seattle is doing at that point in time. That is their number one need. They need 2 interior offensive line picks in the first 3 picks that they make, bar none. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers up, they could use an edge rusher. They could have used Jihad Campbell. He doesn't make it to them, but Donovan Ezaraku makes it to them. This is a guy that they're going to easily bring in and be happy about. Hey, we'll take the edge rusher, not a problem. The Broncos are on the clock, and a lot of people had them taking Omarion Hampton, and he's not on the board here. So what do I have the Broncos doing? I would take my wide receiver 3 in this class, a guy who's close to tier 1, Emeka Egbuka. Cortland Sutton is your outside dominant threat. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, that could be your field stretcher. Egbuka adds an underneath threat that the Broncos offense could really, really use. A guy who, hey, we need 6-7 yards. Who do we get it to on 3rd down? Emeka Egbuka could be that guy. You could argue Colston Loveland as well, but I'm taking Egbuka here because I just think the ceiling is higher. This guy could turn out to be the top wide receiver in this class. At pick 21, Pittsburgh, I have them going Jackson Dart, scheduled for a visit, had a dinner with Mike Tomlin. The guy's an absolute star. I think that, no, star at Ole Miss. He's got a star potential in the NFL. The arm talent, the size, the mobility, it's there. Can they screw his head on right and get that IQ fixed? To be determined, but Pittsburgh right now has Mason Rudolph, so as it stands, Dart would be a day 1 starter. If they bring in Aaron Rodgers, I think a year behind Rodgers wouldn't hurt him. And now we have the Chargers on the clock. And a lot of people are going to say the Chargers need a Luther Burden or a Matthew Golden. I just don't see it happening. Not if Kenneth Grant is still on the board. That Jim Harbaugh will run that pick in. They just lost Poona Ford this offseason. Bring in defensive lineman Kenneth Grant. I also could see Colston Loveland out of Michigan. 2 guys that Harbaugh recruited, but give me Kenneth Grant. The Packers now, they're on the clock. To me, the Packers in this spot have to go Matthew Golden. They're probably not going to because they never draft wide receivers in the first round. So maybe that wasn't as predictive as it should have been. But at the end of the day, Matthew Golden is a field stretcher. Christian Watson tore his ACL. And again, I talked about this in my way too early NFC predictions. I think Green Bay is falling behind in terms of offensive talent to the Lions, to the Vikings, and now to the Bears, especially with that Omarion Hampton pick I made earlier. The Packers got to respond. They got to get a really talented receiver, and that is Matthew Golden. Now, we have the Minnesota Vikings on the clock, and the Vikings have a really, really great roster. Not a lot of holes in it. Safety is a spot that I look at for them, just because they did lose Bynum in free agency. So that being said, I am going to have this team select Nick Amenawari, the safety out of South Carolina. They would have loved Starks to fall, but in this situation, Amenawari not a bad consolation prize. The Houston Texans are up. Kelvin Banks Jr. If he doesn't make it to them, they probably will still take Josh Simmons. I don't know where we're at here technically on the injury risk when it comes to Simmons, but Calvin Banks I think is a really fine pick here for Houston. He's a guy who could play guard in the NFL. They have a need at tackle and guard. They're going to have to work it out in training camp, but this is a guy that could kind of potentially win a battle in either spot. So give me Banks to Houston. The Rams on the clock. This is a team that I do think personally would have loved to get Jihad Campbell. Ultimately, he's not here for them. Defensive line, they could go Walter Nolan. I would say they're pretty set, though, on the D-line with Verse and Fisk. I kind of like what they got. Siobhan Revel, the corner out of East Carolina. Tempting. Certainly a tempting pick. You know, the Rams looking to compete for a Super Bowl. I'm going to go with the cornerback out of Ole Miss, Trey Amos. I like him a little bit more than Revel, and it does fill a need for the Rams. They're a really interesting spot because I could have seen them going Loveland as well, but I couldn't convince myself that they would pull the trigger on it personally. Next, we got the Baltimore Ravens on the clock, and you know, I'm going to have the Ravens take James Pierce Jr. More of a pure edge rusher, but a spot that they need. A spot that they absolutely need. They could use an edge rusher. Detroit also could use an edge rusher. I'm going to have Detroit take the shot on Shamar Stewart. I think his athleticism, his athletic build is there, and they need a guy alongside Aiden Hutchinson. Now we got on the clock the Commanders. I have them taking Walter Nolan. They just lost Jonathan Allen. They need help on the defensive line. That was a pretty quick pick for me. We get to the Buffalo Bills. I could see the Bills as well going edge. I mean, a lot of these teams need edge at the end here. Give me Nick Scorton, the edge out of A&M. I think that's a solid pick for Buffalo. Kansas City on the clock. They're going to take Josh Simmons. They're going to take the risk at tackle. You know, as long as the injuries work out, I could as well see them taking the tackle out of Oregon. And then Philly's on the clock here. Luther Burden's a little tempting, man. But I'm going to have Philly select Colson Loveland out of Michigan. I think that they're a team that is looking to move on from Dallas Goedert. I think he's a potential trade on day 2, and Philly will end up drafting their, their tight end of the future. So this is the draft, guys. You know, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Some of the more surprising picks from me, I didn't think Loveland would fall to Philly. I didn't see that happening. Golden to Green Bay is an interesting look. Kenneth Grant to the Chargers, that was interesting. Obviously, my Omarion Hampton pick at 10. People are going to come at me for that in the comment section. But again, I just think the history of Ben Johnson building an offensive line and wanting his running back of the future is there. Don't be shocked if we see the Bears potentially try and be the team to trade up to 4 with New England because they want to jump the Raiders for Genti. But I think that there's going to be a clear running back pick for the Bears either in the first or second round. Maybe they get a Judkins or a Travion Henderson in round 2, but ultimately the Bears will be drafting a running back early. I do feel that is the case. And, you know, could Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter be flipped here? Potentially, but I see these as picks 2 and 3. I don't think Shedeur goes to New York. I like Shedeur's fit with the Saints. Again, they could trade up to New England. New England, a prime trade back candidate, personally, for me. I also think the Panthers could be a trade back team just because they got to fill out a much deeper roster. Who else could be a trade back team? I could see the Vikings trading out of the first round if there was a team that wanted to trade into the first round. And then the same could be said for Kansas City and Philly. I could see them trading out of the first round, but I don't think Philly lets Loveland get past them if he falls there just because Goddard's on the last year of his deal. But as always, guys, those are just my thoughts. Be sure to let me know yours in the comment section down below. I appreciate all the support that you guys have been showing to the channel. If you made it this far in the video, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you love the NFL. Got, 4 or 5 videos still coming out a week right now for you guys in the off season. I appreciate the support. I'll catch you next time. Peace.